For decades, Albania has been called the North Korea of Europe. It was an isolated country with no trade relations, even with its neighboring countries. Not only that, it had no concept of private property, freedom of speech, or even permission to leave the country. For years, it was a communist country ruled under a cult leadership where corruption ran deep, poverty suffocated progress, and crime flourished. It was a country trapped in a vicious cycle of repression and despair. On top of that, Albania was taken as the most corrupt country in the world. Yet, against all odds, Albania began to rise. How did a nation buried under corruption and isolation manage to reclaim its future? Let's look at the historical background and explore the turning points that reshaped its destiny. Before World War II, Albania was a war-torn country with many internal flaws and economic shortcomings. Soon after the war, communism was established under the leadership of Enver Hoxha, who ruled Albania for over 40 years. From 1945 to 1991, Albania was the most isolated country in the entire Europe. There was great social oppression and the choices were limited for common people in their way of living. It had the least favorable reputation in the world. Not only that, it was almost impossible to get in or get out of the country. Freedom of speech was limited, and there was no freedom of religion. There was no concept of private property and no individual privacy. Everything was controlled by the state. No one was allowed to travel from one city to another, get married, or even get a divorce. If anyone went against the government, they were imprisoned and persecuted along with their family. The state was oppressing everyone, and the single-party system consolidated Hoxha's tyrannic rule. Additionally, the food rationing system was also under the government's supervision. There were some good years during this autocratic rule. In the 1960s, Albania expanded its commercial relations with the Eastern Bloc and continued its status as an independent state. But soon the problem arose. Albania's relations with the Soviet Union took a downward turn for several reasons. That's why Albania had to shift its trading relations with China. But that didn't work either. To avoid the capitalist influence of the West, Hoxha isolated Albania from the whole West and also stopped trade with China. Hoxha closed every communication with the outside world. No one could even cross borders without an official license from the state. That brought Albania's economy to its heels. Because there was no trade, supply lines were disrupted and the nation steered towards poverty. It is interesting to note that the Eastern Bloc was developing at a faster pace. On the contrary, Albania closed itself even more and became an authoritarian regime. The first and foremost tool of the Hoxha regime was to control the masses through strict laws and a state-controlled education system. The education system was organized to keep society and people under control. Hoxha and his policymakers promoted xenophobic nationalism and extreme ideological doctrines. So propaganda and an oppressed system took its roots that alienated Albanian society from the outside world. In short, Albania became a little North Korea. According to reports between 1945 and 1991, around 6,000 people were executed, and 100,000 were imprisoned in labor camps. But besides all this, Albania had a promising geography that could add to its strategic advantage. Firstly, almost 70% of Albania is mountainous, and this terrain can act as a natural barrier against outside invaders. Secondly, Albania is located on the Balkan Peninsula, with borders close to Kosovo, Montenegro, Greece, and some other states. This provides potential for trade with its regional partners. Moreover, these mountains hold vast amounts of natural resources that could add to Albania's economy. But all these strategic assets could not bear fruit for Albania, not in the past nor in the future. To put it simply, Albania did not benefit from its history or geography. Despite its close relations with the Soviet Union and China, it remained isolated in the 80s. But after the overthrow of the communist regime in 1991, Albania's foreign policy took a new shape. Albania established relations with the United States and also became part of some international organizations. But still, it was called the spoilt child of the West given its historical, political backdrop. Fast forward to today, and the country has come a long way to battle corruption and rising crime rates. Despite some government policy reforms, the crime rate crippled Albania for many years. Besides its stunning landscape and history, Albania has had a history of crime, drug trafficking, and kidnapping. With a murder rate of 3.8 per 100,000 people and a robbery rate of 9.7, it shows a dismal picture of the nation. The corruption index in Albania is 36.21, and organized crime is 51.87. The increased crime rate has put the nation under extreme disorder. The overall crime index is challenging for law enforcement agencies and citizens alike. Coupled with that, there is a bribery rate of 10.94% and a human trafficking rate of 24.51%. These numbers highlight that Albania still has a difficult road ahead to counter these negative elements. Moreover, the corruption perception index of 37 out of 100 also shows that the nation is grappling with its demons. Kidnapping, fraud, and cybercrimes have also been buzzing in Albania for many years. Instead of all these challenges, the story is not over for Albanians. Many believe that the right policy framework and the proper implementation can fulfill the purpose of pulling Albania back from corruption and other ills. To ensure this, Albania has introduced and set up some key structural reforms. Its post-communist transformation was focused on two key ideas. The first one was to replace a totalitarian regime with a democratic government. The second was shifting from a centralized socialist economy to a free market economy. These reforms promote equitable growth, enhance productivity, and maintain competition in the global market. For a country of 2.8 million people, it is a hectic task to rewind all the policy guidelines and align them with national and public interests. But Albania is doing all this to provide more jobs and improve governance and public services. For Albania, the trajectory is shifting from isolation to integration. The government is focusing on tourism, agriculture, and digital reforms to improve regional connectivity and economic growth. In 2023, its national growth reached 3.3% due to increased exports and investment in key sectors. So poverty is expected to decline, and wages are about to increase. Not only that, Albania is one of the pro-American countries in Europe. Once known as the North Korea of Europe, is now a burgeoning democracy thriving under guidelines and principles. It is a strong NATO ally and a candidate for membership in the European Union. Adding to that, the Albanian economy has emerged as one of the stronger performing economies in the region since last year. Its GDP growth was 3.6% in 2023 due to a potential increase in the tourism and construction sectors. Along with this, the biggest leverage for Albania is its bilateral relationship with the global power, the US. Both countries are committed to enhancing commercial and economic ties. Their bilateral and trade relations have taken a positive turn as the US sends a variety of exports to Albania. These are energy, medical equipment, travel and tourism, construction, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture. Moreover, the US also promotes Albania's broad-based economic growth and integrates it into European and Euro-Atlantic structures. It is a positive sign for the development and the image of Albania as a desired destination for business, travel, and other matters. Albania is one of the countries with the youngest population in Europe. It has 20% of its population aged between 15 and 29. This huge young demography is a win-win sign for Albania if it utilizes it well. But in lieu of our discussion, Albania still has a long way to go. Despite some policy measures, there are significant hurdles in the form of corruption, crime, and poverty. But will Albania achieve them and get rid of its status as North Korea of Europe? What are your thoughts about it? Do you think Albania will get out of this hole to counter every challenge? Let us know in the comments section. For more such videos and hot topics, stay tuned to our video and don't forget to subscribe.